Hi. Look, if you want to read the article, you only have to ask. But it's Canon anyway, so you're not going to like it. This is rather impractical. Good idea. So yes, I've just been reading the article on Canon rumours about a patent for a new type of mechanical shutter. And it's rather intriguing. This is, admittedly, it's a patent. Obviously, odds are we won't even see it anyway. Reading the comment sections of these Canon rumours posts, it seems to be quite polarising, this idea. Some people seem to be quite intrigued by it and think it's something they'd like to see, and other people think it's going to be a complete waste of time. So I just really wanted to discuss it and get some feedback from you guys as well as to if this is something you would like to see in the future or not. For those who haven't seen the article, essentially it's a patent that's been filed by Canon that appears to show removing the physical shutter button on a camera, the physical button that you would press to take a picture, and replacing it with a touch-sensitive pad instead. Now, it doesn't really go into any more detail as to what this would entail, what it would mean for the functionalities of the camera. If we go with the worst case scenario and say that it's simply removing the physical button and replacing it with a touch sensitive pad that you would just tap to take a picture and that is it, then it's going to be a complete waste of time. And I say that because there's nothing wrong with the shutter buttons that are already on cameras. They work absolutely fine. The only arguable negative to a physical button on a camera is that it becomes a weather sealing weak spot in essence, because it's a physical hole in the camera, but you've got O-rings and rubber seals behind it that should keep that covered. So even that is not really that much of a problem. Sure, a touch sensitive pad would be a sealed unit that wouldn't then be a problem, but presumably that would then be incorporated into the entire shell of the camera. So if that was to develop a fault, it's going to be an absolute nightmare to replace, whereas a physical button is dead cheap and dead quick. So hopefully they're going to do just a little bit more than make essentially a touch sensitive shutter button. There is the potential to have a lot of functionality within that, as Canon have already shown with the touch bar of the EOS R. That opened up the prospect of being able to control a lot of other aspects of the camera with touch sensitive motions rather than physical buttons, which to some extent could be an improvement, make things a lot easier. It just seemed to be the general consensus, however, that the way they implemented it in the EOS R was crap. It just wasn't really a natural place to put it. It was quite a small touch bar. It didn't really improve the ergonomics, as it was just trying to fix a problem that didn't actually exist. And this is where we get into the area that I can't decide if having a touch-sensitive shutter pad is going to be a good thing or a bad thing. Because you could, in essence, employ things like your focus selector in there. So rather than physically pushing the buttons around to move your selector point, you would essentially have a square pad that you could just press an AF selector button and then just guide your finger around as to where you want to go. My concern with that, however, is given the Canon grip size, the area that you've got to move around in isn't particularly big. So I think trying to fine-tune, kind of pinpoint a particular autofocus point is going to be extremely difficult. And even if it wasn't an AF selector, you could arguably use it for controlling settings. So you could have it programmed to be your aperture control. But again, I think when you're using a camera with actual clicking buttons, you get a real-time sense of how many clicks you've made, how far you're moving the settings. So it's dead easy to dial in exactly what you want. With something smooth and motionless like a touchpad, it becomes quite difficult. Arguably, I think it could end up hindering people. On any camera, the shutter button is always, you press it, and it's only ever there to fire the camera. That is it. But if you've got a touchpad doubling up as a shutter button as well, how are you going to have it controlled so that, you know, if you're halfway through changing a setting, what are you going to do to it to make it fire the camera? You know, there's been times where, you know, I've been halfway through changing a setting and something's happened and I've wanted to grab a quick shot, knowing that I pushed the shutter button, the camera's going to take a picture. If I was already in the middle of changing a setting and I was using that joypad, is that then going to prevent the camera from firing? So arguably a lot of people could end up missing shots because they weren't able to access the setting to fire the camera, which seems a bit crazy. And another area of this that could end up causing a lot of extra missed shots is if it gets wet. Because I know with my phone, for example, if I try using this outside when it's raining, a few spots of water on the screen and suddenly the phone has no idea where I'm trying to touch. It just completely freezes up and you end up having to kind of wipe the screen dry before it'll start registering your touch again. And I can see that where if you're using such a device out in the rain, is water landing on the touchpad going to stop the touchpad recognizing your finger and stop you from taking a picture? Or even worse, is it going to activate the button and make it start randomly taking pictures just because there's a few drops of rain on there? Could be a problem. One interesting notion that I did see a comment suggest is that it could be a biometric fingerprint scanner. It could double up as a biometric fingerprint scanner so that it would allow you to lock your camera, and the only way to be able to access the camera and use it would be by scanning your finger. That's an interesting notion and would certainly make Tony Northrup happy because I've heard him mention that quite a few times. But again, I think if they were going to put a biometric scanner on the camera, they would be better putting a dedicated scanner somewhere else rather than incorporating it into the shutter button. Because you've got 5 fingers that you could use to unlock the camera. It doesn't have to be your trigger finger. You could just have it on the inside of the grip and one of your other fingers would activate it. But then again, how often do you ever grab the camera, switch it on and immediately want to start firing? So it doesn't even need to be there. You could put a fingerprint scanner pretty much anywhere because most people would unlock the camera before they started to get ready to go shooting. I mean, maybe they're trying to do an all-in-one. Maybe it could be a fingerprint scanner and a motion trackpad and a shutter button as well. But I am inclined to think that if such a device was to come onto the market, that it would actually be more of a gimmick trying to be a unique selling point than actually something that brings any true benefit to the shooter. But obviously, remains to be seen. Might never see it, who knows? But is it something that you would like to see? And if so, how would you like to see it work? Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below. While you're down there, if you haven't already and you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button, and then hopefully we'll see you in the next video.